We have streaming, you have visuals, you have radio, and then you have image. Beyonce is a prime example of the image comes before the music. And so when you get the music, and if you guys remember when her record first came out, a lot of people had trepidation about it. There were a lot of different debates going on about it. But as the image took over, people started loving the record. So there are so many different elements and so many different layers, because as artists and producers now, we can do something that we couldn't do when Jimmy and I first started, and that is own the product. We didn't own the masters. So the value of the intellectual property that we're dealing with is at a whole other level. And so the process is at a whole other level. I'm not 16, I'm 60. So when I make a record today, I can't make a record with the same idea that I had as a young person, because our industry is a very young industry. So when I make music, the question is, am I making music to make the statement and to have something that I'm gonna be proud of 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, or am I making a record to fit into where we are today? So it becomes a different idea based on who you are and what you're looking for.
Good answer. I like that. Yes. He brought up a good point when it comes to radio. That is a very important piece of it. That's, again, part of my job is to listen to hundreds of songs all day, every day, and every week. You know, we're adding songs into rotation at KJLH. Mira, you started out in radio, so you kind of understand what radio listens for. Can you explain a little bit, you know, from your music director days at PGC, what that sound is that makes it to the radio? Because so many people struggle to kind of break through.
Well, I think a lot of people on the record side, and even music side, period, hate the term radio record. However, it's a thing, right? And I think that radio has a flow. And I just got finished explaining this to Lamar. I think that radio, there's a science to radio. So you want the song, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you want your listener to hear their favorite song in the car from point A to point B. And even every time they go from B to C, you want them to hear that same favorite song. And then they go from C to D, they, you know, so on and so on. So because of that, it has to have a flow, right? So, but today, music has changed so much. We used to be able to say, yo, this is a radio song, this is a hit single, or whatever the case may be. But now, because of so many different variables, you can't necessarily say that. We knew that songs had to have hooks and bridges and all of that, and now I can probably tell you 3 or 4 songs that didn't have a hook that were #1 records. But they still had a different flow to it, they still had a flow to it, and you want radio, you want your station to sound the same way all day.
Absolutely.
So if you get to a point where a song, and you can still listen to albums and feel, okay, this song feels like it could be on the radio. Or this song could feel like it could be on the club, or this song could be in different places. And you know, fortunately, radio isn't the only tool, right? You got streaming, you got syncing, you got all of these different things that you can use to quantify a hit record.
Absolutely.
So as it pertains to radio in particular, I think and I feel like radio is supposed to flow, meaning that it's supposed to have a sound all day long that gives you a feeling.
Yes, and you know, not everybody again can get on that tight playlist that we have at radio stations, but there's still indie artists out there who want to make it to that next level. And Rock Nation, Reza, your team, you spoke briefly that you all are still developing artists. Can you tell us, like, if I'm a brand new artist coming through the doors, I just got signed by Rock Nation, what's next?
So basically, it's a arduous process to become to radio. Back when we first started radio, there was the guy at radio that heard the song, like yourself, and would say, look, I have a gut feeling this song's gonna work, let's go with it. You're not as welcome to trust that gut anymore because of all the other things that Amir just mentioned now, right? So you have to look at all the other indicators, otherwise your neck is kind of on the line for taking a risk. So the first thing an artist should do is establish themselves with all the fundamentals. We make sure you have all the basic fundamentals, picture, social media, you get your publishing right, you get your stuff encoded. There's a real business to this. You have to understand that if you're gonna try and get on the radio, it's a business, and it's a very coveted spot, like Chris just said. There's only so many spots on a radio station that they can play new music, so we have to make sure that our product stands out and warrants that spot. So to do that, you have to do all the groundwork, which is establish yourself and have a story as to why you deserve that spot next to the next person that's already getting all the other mediums popping for themselves. The social media, the TikTok, the DSPs, which are the streaming companies, their images out there. Radio used to be at the front of what we would do, and now it's at the end of what we do. Radio is the amplifier that takes your familiarity and makes you into a household name and a star. It's not the music discovery tool it used to be. It's now the amplifier that's going to make you into a star as opposed to be discovered.
Love it. And, you know, again, when you're working with artists right off the ground floor, there's so much to learn, and there's a lot on the legal aspect too. And that's where Whitney Houston comes into play. My first question for you, does an artist need a business plan?
Oh, I'm glad you asked it that way. Does an artist need a business plan?
Yeah.
If you're talking about a business plan that you're going out to go raise money with, no.
Okay.
Talking about a plan for how you're going to proceed with your business, then absolutely. So I don't think you need a formal, unless you're planning to open a record company, then you want a business plan. If you want investors, you're looking for somebody to invest in you in that way, you might. But otherwise, you just need a plan for how you're going to proceed, and not just think that the art is going to be what takes me over, because it's not like that.
Do you have any advice for independent artists who are out there, again, seeking legal? How can they avoid scams as an independent artist?
So probably one of the most important things to understand is you're going to have to be around people that you trust. It's the most critical thing, because you're going to have to be around people you trust, and then you're going to have some good sense of your own. So, and what that means is, one of the things that I have a client, they'll come in and they'll say, you know, this producer reached me and they want me to sign this. And I'll say, well, how'd you meet him? Oh, I met him somewhere. Okay, well, let me Google him. Let me just Google. Just put it in the search engine, see what pops up. And generally speaking, what will pop up is that it's a scam. You'll find somebody who had a Twitter rant. You'll find somebody who, there's all kinds of ways to find out that information. And it's also why you want people you trust, because they know to go find that information for you if you don't know yourself. So I'd say really surround yourself with people with you trust, even if it takes longer to get where you want to go, because that's how you get in trouble, is being out there not thinking intentionally about how you move forward.
Good point. You want to pick it up?
Yeah, I'm sure, Reza, you get this a lot. People hit me up and say, I got an email from blah, 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 saying that they wanted to check out my son or my daughter, my uncle, my nephew, whatever. And I always say to them, send me the email address, right? Because if you get an email address from a label, somebody saying it's a record company, and it doesn't have @UMusic, @Rock Nation, @Sony, @whatever, Capitol Records, whatever, .com, if it's @Gmail, it's probably a scam. And I'm not even gonna say probably, it's definitely a scam. So it's just little things like that. And, you know, raise your hand, like ask somebody. Like she said, you gotta be around people who, if you wanted to be a trash man, you would go hang around trash men. If you wanted to play basketball, you would hang out with basketball players. You want to be in the music business, you need to figure out how to be around music business people. Straight up. That's what I have to ask.
And don't mistrust social media, because social media is full of people that take pictures of people that they don't know.
Exactly.
Facts. Now, shifting back over here to the OG's Jimmy Jam, for an artist, is it better to be independent now or to consider going major?
I think there's not a right or a wrong way. I think you try to figure out the best way to do it, what works for you. You know, we ended up for our first album as artists, we ended up doing sort of a combination. We had our own label, which was independent. We went with BMG. So we felt like we had kind of the best of both worlds in that. But I think everybody needs to figure out what it is that their goal is, whether they want to be on radio, whether they want to sell, you know, a lot of physical product, whether they want to do streaming. And then I think one of the things that seems to be a very common thread is that information is all out there. If you go on the internet and you do a little research. So if you know what it is you want to do, you will identify companies that you maybe feel like what you do aligns with them. There's certain companies in the hip hop space that do better, certain companies that do better in the R&B space, certain companies that do better in the country space or the rock space or whatever way you're trying to go. But maybe that's a good way to start, is to figure out what those companies are, and then that may be the company for you. But yeah, I think it's just, you know, common sense, I guess, I would say. Just kind of look at there, figure out what it is that's missing, and then try to fill that need and align with a company that has that same train of thought that you're trying to do.
I like that. J. King, do you have anything to add? Whether or not to go indie or major?
Well, you have to start indie. Very seldom will a label just see an artist and pick them up. Now, because we live in a different world, you have to have social media, you have to have streaming. There are certain things that you have to do as an artist to get the attention of a major label and them actually pouring into you. You can get signed to a label without those things, and the possibility of you having a hit becomes a toss-up. Because most people think because you're with a major label that you're going to automatically get a hit. That's not so.
Not true.
We are in a business that's a moving target because technology is making music iterate a whole lot faster. When I first started making records, it could iterate 3 to 4 years. Now music is iterating in 6 months, a year. The whole style of music is changing. So, as an artist, this is your business. You have to get involved in the mechanical part of the business. I started off independently. My first record was Rumors. I sold it out the back of my car. And to this day, it's never been distributed by a major distributor. I was always with independents. So, if I had to do it over again, instead of signing to Warner Brothers, I would have stayed independent. I did the hard work. The hard work was selling the record. I had the biggest selling 12-inch in '86, bigger than all the majors, bigger than any of the independents. I sold 3.5 million in the United States alone, 10 million worldwide. But it was hard work. And a lot of people want the apple. They just don't want to plant the seeds and tend to it. So it's who you are. You got to figure out who you are in this game, and then what is success to you. For me, success is actually just getting the project done today. I just want to get the project done. I want to get the music done, and then say I did my work, and let it be what it is. But I can do that because I make a good amount of money from my residual income because I have big records that continue to make money. Artists don't have that. But I promise you, if you're an independent artist and you do your work, if you can get 1,000 people to contribute $100 a year to your craft, to be a patron of your art, and you can grow that by 10 to 20% every year, in 5 years, you'll never want to be anything but independent. Not only will you make money, you will own your intellectual property. You won't understand the value of that for years and years and years. The metaverse is going to be an explosion that you don't even understand yet.
So that's a great point he makes, and you also have to think, because you're a product, right? If you go into a place, how would you expect to get attention when you go, like, let's say I go to get signed to where Amir's at or where I'm at. If you're not at a level that you demand attention, how are they going to give you the attention over Kendrick Lamar, over J. Cole, over Jay-Z? You have to commend that. Also, more than ever, all the services that a label can provide you are available to you as an independent artist. And it might not even require the same budget it used to anymore. It's just a matter of the, like I said, the hard work. You have to do the work and find it. You can do it yourself more than ever. So it's the best time to be independent, and you make the most money. The label is just the final goal, but until then, you can make a great living without being at a label.
I agree. I equate a lot of things to sports. So here's another sports analogy when it comes to being independent or a major, or even trying to get to a major. If you're really good at football and you go to a little small black college, the NFL is gonna come find you. You know what I mean? Steve McNair went to Alcorn State. You know what I mean? I watched him play football in Howard and lit Howard up, and then he ended up at the NFL. There's a lot of small black schools producing really good basketball players, NFL players, and they're going to find them. So it's no different. It's better served when the label comes to find you, because that means you've been putting in the work and we've been watching. We got people all over the country that watch. You know what I mean? All of us, there's data. We got data we can find to see what you're doing. If you selling merch, if you selling out shows, if you selling, you streaming, if you on the radio, we can see all of this, and we can actually see it from our phone. We don't even have to be in your town. So if you're doing the work, you're gonna keep hearing this. If you're doing the work, somebody's gonna find you. If you want to be major, if you want to be on the major. I always preach independence. I've done it both sides. But the best relationships are when it's a partnership. You know what I'm saying? When it's a major partnering up with you, not when it's a joint venture, when we both got something to lose, and we go in and we try to make things happen. So it could happen either way, but trust and believe. If you put in the work and you really doing something, and you got people, labels are lazy. We don't want to take things from all the way from the ground. We wanted to kind of like have a little feeding and some leaves on it before we can go and say, all right, yeah. You know what I mean? We don't want to plant it. We don't want to do all that. I'm keeping it up. Labels don't want to do all that. They want to have it so the tree has started to grow a little bit, and all we need to do is add some sunlight to it and water it a little bit, and that should know you end up being a superstar. That's how that goes.
So here's a legal question. After you put in all of the work, you've got the attention that you rightfully deserve, and you get that first contract. Explain to the average person, Whitney, should they get a regular attorney or should they get an entertainment lawyer? Who do we go to first?
Excuse me, you're gonna laugh because it's the same answer. You go to the person that you trust first. It's the first person you go to. You go to look to see if they know any lawyers. Most lawyers know other lawyers, and they know lawyers in other genres. And if you're going from referral to referral, and it's personal, and you're having the opportunity to have that person's vetted by somebody else, you can feel a level of comfort about who you're going to. Because the thing you got to understand is, I would love to put it really politely, but some would suggest euphemistically that the music business is a little janky in terms of how they treat creatives. Some might say that. I've heard.
No.
Some might say it. So it's really important that you have a lawyer as soon as you can. Because I cannot tell you the number of clients that I've had who came to me after they signed because they were so excited to have this wonderful document that they signed. And they want me to help them now. And I'm looking at the contract. Did you get anybody to look at this? Did anybody? No, I was just so excited to sign it. I said, well, you see that part where it says, you should probably have a lawyer look at this. Really, that's what that means. You should probably have a lawyer look at this. They really are telling that's the only advice you get on one of those contracts. And so there are plenty of attorneys who can do contracts and review contracts. It is beneficial to have somebody who has some understanding of the music business because it is very particularized. There are a lot of very specific terms that you just need to know what the hell you're doing when you sign the contract. Excuse me, but you do. And so you want somebody who has some knowledge. But if you have a trusted attorney in the family whose best friend is an entertainment lawyer that they work with, that works too. What's important is that you make sure that it's somebody that you can trust. And again, if you don't have any of these resources and you just need to find out, that Google is again your friend. There are websites that rate attorneys. There are AV rated attorneys. You can go on any website, Martindale Hubble, there's a bunch of them, all online, and you can go check the lawyers out. Those are the ways that you want to do it. And you can also even go on the website, the California Bar website, and see if the attorney's ever been disciplined or is an attorney. Because they're all licensed, they're all right there. And those sound like really kind of mundane steps, but those are the steps that ultimately, when they come to me with litigation, those are the steps that got missed. Those are the steps that had they taken other steps, the mundane ones that don't seem like they're that big a deal. Had they taken those steps, they would be in a position. And again, doesn't mean you won't get sued, doesn't mean you won't have to sue anybody, but at least you have a contract that somebody's reviewed and explained to you. I've also had clients who signed bad deals, but they knew. I said, this is a bad deal, I don't think you should sign it. And they say, that's okay, because it's an opportunity you want to take, but you are informed about what it is you're doing, so you're going into it with your eyes wide open.
Chris, can I say something?
Sure.
You have to know your value and who you are when you pick up an attorney. When I did rumors and then labels started calling me, I didn't just want a lawyer. I wanted the best lawyer because I wanted the best deal. So you can't get the best deal if you don't have the best lawyer. So Richard Lehrer became my lawyer. Richard Lehrer was the lawyer for the Rolling Stones. So instead of just getting a regular old record deal, I had a lot of what ifs in my record deal. What if I sell 300,000 albums? Because that's a lot of records to sell your first time out. Can I get this? What if I sell 500,000 records? Can I get this? It's how I ended up with a label deal at Warner Brothers. Because my what ifs, because number one, the lawyer who was presenting the deal was a respected lawyer. And if you want to be at that level, you have to pay the money to be at that level. That means that your accountant has to be at that level, your attorney has to be at that level, your manager has to be at that level for you to get paid at that level.
Come on now, that's good.
So, I always believe that you gotta know who you are walking in the game, and then you have to be willing to say no. If it don't work for you, if it don't work for me, I don't do it. But just know that at the height of my career, and from 1986 to 1990 was the biggest part of my career, I had label deals at Warner Brothers, EMI, BMG, and Capitol. And so Brian Morgan, who ended up producing SWV, signed to me. Shantae Moore signed to me. Michael Cooper signed to me. Vanilla Ice signed to me. I had all of these guys signed to me. Vanilla Ice, the biggest selling record of that time. He and Prince selling 1 million records a week. I made a lot of money on that record. I didn't make the record because I loved it. I made the record because I understood that white guys hadn't penetrated the market yet, but the market wanted it because I could hear Run DMC on golf courses. So you got to know who you are when you walk in the game, and then you have to stand up to that value and not ever waver.
So can I just have a quick reply? 100% true. But what I want to make sure is a lot of people hear that and they become afraid that it's like, well, if I can't afford this, people step back. And so what I say to you is get the best that you can afford, but don't ever ignore it, because it's like insurance. Having a lawyer is like having insurance. It's somebody to look at where you are and what you're doing. And if you cannot afford any lawyer, you cannot afford to do business. And I say that in all sincerity. You need somebody to look at your stuff. You need somebody to negotiate for you. You need somebody to be there for you, no matter where you are at that time. So that's
it's a tricky game in 2022.
It's an investment in yourself, though.
Yeah.
It's not taxing money out of your pocket. It's money you would lose if you didn't spend it. So it's really just coming. It's a percentage of what you're going to make.
Yeah.
Scared money don't make nothing.
Yeah.
Say that.
There you go. So there's the business side of this, the financial side of this,
Okay.
but then there's the day-to-day artistry of this. And Lamar, I'm going to bring you in on this question because I've seen you in the studio to 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Can you just talk about the work demands in 2022 and how it's changed from then to now? Is it easier? Is it harder? Did technology help?
Well, it's a loaded question because,
today you have a 13 or 14-year-old making beats in his closet on his bed with his laptop. And then there's the acquired musicians who study music, who went to colleges like this, and they invested $25,000, $30,000 in their studio, and they're at the best microphones, and so there's a million ways to do it. Artists today, can go on YouTube and lease a beat for $25 and can.
Does that upset you? As like
no, it doesn't. It really doesn't. It kind of like levels the playing field. I love to see the technology being used, and I love the competition of it because it makes the 60-year-old and the 50-year-old musician actually get on his craft. There's a lot of guys who can play piano very, very well. They can play guitar very good, but they can't use a computer. So they can't make that record, like they want to, but then there's the 14 or 13-year-old kid who would just take the chance, even if it's wrong, he's going to mouse click and mouse click and mouse click until it sounds right. So I think it's a good thing. I love that technology is moving people to make their own records, and you don't have to have a $200,000 studio to make a record and to get a hit record. I love it.
Wow, that's a good point. Jimmy Jam, I'm going to ask you that same question. Work demands now versus then. Now that you have all of this technology, is it easier? Is it harder? And how do you feel at your level?
It's different because when I remember when we first came to LA, our whole thing was we needed to get in the studio in order to actually make a record. And fortunately, there were people like Leon Silvers III that let us in the studio to do our thing, and so that was the thing. Nowadays, and certainly over the last few years, a couple of years of COVID, I was literally working out of my laptop at home, and then we were, using technology to work with people, on the other side of the world and all that kind of thing. So the technology is wonderful because what it does is it gives you opportunities. There's more opportunities available to make music, and it makes it more accessible. And I can sit on a plane and make tracks, or I can be anywhere now.
Wow.
So I love that. I love that. So it's just different. It's a different,
That's a good point. Good point. Can we speak to the quality of producing music with quality? So often, every day when I'm in the office, I'm listening to these different songs, and the quality isn't quite radio standard. How do you put that polish on a song?
Well, for me, it's some of it's in the creative process, but it's also in the mixing process. There's a lot of people out there that mix records really, really well. We were actually talking backstage about a couple of them, but I think that's the thing nowadays, is just to make sure that the finished product sounds great. And there's also, once again, in the technology space, there's a lot of mastering things that you can do that. There's people that do mixes. Basically, you just send them the stuff and they will mix it and send it back to you. So, everybody at their own level, I think it's just about doing the best that you can with what you have. But you no longer need to be, in a studio in order to do it.
To do all of this stuff, that's what's amazing. You can do it right in the palm of your hands. And, to me, being an artist is a heavy burden because it's just so much. And, we've talked about legal and we've talked about the production end of it, but there's even social media, marketing yourself through social media. So I'm going to turn back to my record guys. Reza, how do I market myself just independently aside from anything else? What are some good tactics and tricks?
So there's two ways to it, as I've seen, right? I work with a lot of developing artists, so it's a different level than a lot of the artists I used to work with that came with several million followers. There's the paid ads, which are very useful, and you have to be targeted with them and be smart. But there's also just the time spent by yourself. The best thing about it is if you have time and you take the time, you can grow your own fan base literally by commenting on people's pages, finding like-minded people. When you go on Spotify and it says, your music sounds like such and such. Go to such and such's social media and start commenting with their fans, and then get their fans to engage with you because obviously they like music that's similar to yours. It's just a matter of spending time. If you don't have the money but you have the time, that's the best place to be right now, because if you have the time and the wherewithal, you will be able to find enough people to congregate in one place that like your music. Essentially, that's the whole point of what we're doing is being able to link enough people together that like the same things. And all you have to do is go out there and find them. But it takes time and it takes, persistence.
Yeah, to kind of add on to what Reza was saying, I believe that content is king. So I believe that because artists, yeah, we want to hear your music, but nowadays they want to know how you make your bricks. So if you can't figure out a way to become relatable to your consumer, you're missing a lot. Or if you feel like you're just going to just do music, you're going to find that this business in 2022 cares more about what you do and how you do it, more as opposed to what it sounds like. So I'm in a space where I believe that, okay, so if it's 100%, I think maybe 70% of it is content and social media, and the other 30 is what the music sounds like. And because of that, and I can give you an example, right? We all love Beyonce, right? And I think that as dope as this album is, I feel like she should have sold more. Well, the reason why I feel like that is because she took, and Kjlh too, they took years off of content. Like they straight up disappeared. Well, and I got another artist I can think about the same thing. Consumers move on fast. They don't care how big you are. Like if you don't give them something to hold on to in that 3 or 4 years, somebody else is gonna come in. There's gonna be a Summer Walker that come in. Now, Summer Walker may not have the music all the time, well she does, but she gonna stay relevant on social media. Either you gonna like it or you gonna hate it. She gonna be tapped in. You gotta do that. You gotta stay tapped in on social media or content or YouTube or whatever. All of it is the same. So the moment that you feel like you're just gonna disappear and not apply content to people, they're gonna forget about you. And they're gonna wait on your music. And when your music comes, you better have content ready for them, because somebody said earlier, we listen with our eyes. Like, yo, if it's 2022, Instagram is a perfect example. It didn't happen if you didn't post it on Instagram. That's where the